I want a good old boys, me and Chris on the internet one day. Chris said to Neil, let's make a podcast, boy. Come on now, what do you think? Well, what will this podcast be about? Said Neil with a tear in his eye. Without stories that people tell each other from Louisiana Pie to the city of Mumbai. Oh, you mean urban legends. And the podcast was Urban Legends with Neil and Chris. You take care, y'all.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Urban Legends, the listening thing that you do with your ears and minds about urban legends on the internet. I am pathetic, bullied, incompetent TV advertising father, Chris Flynn, and with me is the man who was the body double for Dwayne the Rock Johnson in the video for his hit song It Doesn't Matter with Wyclef Jean. It is Mr.
Neil Herbert.
Hi Neil, how's your week been?
Yeah, not too bad. I only told you about that, the body doubling thing. Is that was supposed to be remain between you and me, Chris.
Oh, was it?
He's going to be spitting mad now that gets out.
Well, I mean, he had wrestling to do, didn't he? So he couldn't be turning out Wyclef
been on
Jean
the donuts,
video.
to be honest with you, mate.
Oh, really? And he put
getting a bit of a chub, getting a bit of a man bod going on, dad bod.
Well, he has famously admitted to the fact that he's had liposuction on his tits to make them like more defined,
more gorgeous. Yeah,
but I mean, fair enough that he's admitted it. Do you know what I mean? Because he's a very strong-toned man, and even he is, getting older, like all of us are.
And good for him for admitting that. And some try and keep the illusion up. And do you know what?
I mean,
we're all mortal.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like the thing. Men kind of these days, have to kind of look like they're all like muscly and have six packs and that,
Tell me about it.
And it's effortless. Whereas actually the people who do kind of have that kind of body really live quite miserable lives.
Well, yeah, it's like every time I flex my muscles, a door breaks just by the sheer kinetic energy cascading out from my limbs. It's a nightmare. But you've got to keep yourself in the top tip shape.
All the windows shatter in a 4-block radius.
Well, it doesn't make you very popular with the neighbours, I'll tell you that.
Well, you just have to stop flexing. Can't, mate. Can't stop flexing.
Well, ironically, that makes me flex even more, so they back off.
Oh, right. They
It's
get
a vicious cycle.
Their clothes rip off their bodies like they've been hit by a nuclear bomb.
Yeah. Literally a sound wave, kind of. It's like Mach 1 emanating from my glistening pecs.
How was Wyclef to work with? Was he all right?
Disinterested.
Right.
You can see why it's his second career. I mean, I think I think you got to come and you got to give it your all. Do you know what I mean? If you're coming in for it's sort of like a second career like that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's not Wyclef's second career.
Isn't he a musician primarily?
Yeah, Wyclef Jean.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. What do you think he is?
I thought we were talking about him being in a movie.
No. What? No, he did the song.
I'm getting him confused with will.i.am, aren't I? That's what's happened here.
Yeah, who isn't a musician at all.
Yeah, allegedly. In that terrible Wolverine movie. Sorry. No, do you know what? I'm getting my industry stories mixed up, Chris. It's that busy a lot.
What you've done there is
around 10 grams of cocaine.
You've conflated members of the Fugees. That's what you've done there.
Oh, what an idiot.
But I hate when people do that.
Or conflated members of the Fugees with members of the Black Eyed Peas.
If anything, what you've done is you've just proved Lauryn Hill right in everything that she says.
Oh,
so hope you're happy with yourself.
Apple the app never returns my phone calls anymore, so let alone the third Fuji, whatever his name was. He was good times with Wyclef Jean. Gave me a lot of good advice.
Yep, such as
keep it real. Wear your condom so you don't get a red rum, whatever that government episode was. I was like,
that's good.
Yeah, fair point. Wyclef, sexually transmitted diseases are nothing to joke about.
So Neil, it's the football off season. I know.
I've been enjoying the cricket, Chris. I know you're not a fan, but yeah,
I'm not. I find
England won the Test series against New Zealand, and not New Zealand. New Zealand in a thrilling series.
I find it quite you know what really amuses me is that you take the mickey out of American football for being turn-based rugby, whereas you like cricket, which is an even more boring sport. So,
well, it's. No, with American football, and actually, I can quite enjoy a game of American football.
Yeah.
The thing for me, which just boggles my mind because I wasn't brought up with it, like watching the game, I enjoy that. It's the amount of stoppages that I can't get my head around. And it's just because I'm not used to it, and it's
basically a series of set plays.
I get it. I totally get it. And I'm just being sarcastic when I say it. But to be fair, Americans joke about it themselves. They'll publish like infographs where it's like amount of time spent on the pitch versus adverts and stoppages and half-time breaks and all this shit.
It's good fun to play.
Yeah, no,
it is good fun to play.
No, do you know what it's like? And to be honest with you, I don't even have a problem with the whole idea of them calling it football because football was just originally a loosely aligned series of games. Some you play with your hands, some you would. So rugby is rugby football. Soccer is association football, and then that was American football, which is why we call it American. But so no,
it's more the thing which is used. So it being a ball, like that's what it's kind of based around. They're all ball-based
a rough-shaped rectangular pitch where you have a ball and you move it around, and some of them it's egg-shaped, some of it's round, but those are just the rules of that particular football association.
As I know, Neil, having done but dropped out of sports science A level in college, they're invasion games because there's certain types of games. There's like 3 or 4 different types of games, and they're invasion games. So you're trying to take territory and get to your. They're essentially, basically, like the really boring computer games like tower defense games. But it's essentially that because you're trying to
defending a goal.
You're defending you're defending your base, and you're trying to attack their base. Yeah, and that's football's like that. Hockey, rugby.
It was originally just a ruck between two villages, basically, wasn't it?
It was, exactly. Yeah, it was about 500 people hitting each other with sticks.
Yeah, it's the same with cricket. It's just somebody with a ball and somebody with a bat, and then they just like smack each other.
But that's a different type of game because it's not an invasion game.
No, it wasn't. It just used to be people smacking each other around. Oh, right. That's why they had to invent the rules because they would just literally like hammer
everyone was dying. Yeah. So Neil, are we? Oh, just to do with football, are you enjoying the off season? Are you enjoying the
Nations Cup? I couldn't give a fuck about
the Cannon Boys. Are they making any signings?
And so I've actually forgotten the chap's name. It was like unexpected one a couple of days ago.
That's good.
Some midfielder, and Nketiah has just signed
a contract
extension. Yeah. I think that's good. That's promising. We're still looking to get forwards. I think. Yeah, there's a couple.
Looking forward to the new season then.
Oh yeah, I'm back in Europe, so that'll be all right. And yeah, we'll see. Transfer season, I don't generally tend to like. I don't follow it too closely, just because there's usually a load of bullshit and hype, and I'm not interested in all of that. But no, I think we're going out trying to do the right things in the market, so that's cool. We'll see. We'll see how we go.
There we go. That was a bit better than the cultural stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, a bit better. I was talking about sport, so
which
we probably lost a lot of viewers.
Most of our audience couldn't care less about. They're here for the urban legends, Chris. And
they are here for
the witty banter, and they're not getting much of either right now.
And
they've not been served much. It's been thin gruel on the latter for quite some time now.
Well, and according to the Spotify thing, which I was looking at, they're also on Spotify for Hall and Oats. So maybe they'll have drifted off to listen to some Hall and Oats.
Oh, she's a maniac, Chris. And by maniac, I mean any of our listeners. Did you know the origin of that story? It was about I might have said this on the podcast before.
Is it Manage or Maniac?
She's a maniac.
She's a maniac. Maniac. Is that Hall and Oats?
I'm pretty sure it is Hall and Oats. It was originally a song about serial killer.
Oh, okay.
He's going to be, he's a maniac. He'll kill your cat and nail him to the door. That was the original lyrics. So I've heard.
That's quite horrible.
Maybe it's an urban legend. But yeah, then when they got signed up to the movie, they converted it into a song about a lady who's so passionate about dance. Because if you think about it, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Well, why is she a maniac? Because she's dancing.
Well, she's dancing like a maniac, Neil.
Well, yeah.
Look at her, she's dancing like a maniac.
Hall and Oats, maniac. I mean, either that or it's an urban legend, Chris, and that's what we're here for.
It is what we're here for. Let's have a. I mean, this isn't the urban legend of what we're doing today.
Yeah, it's Hall and Oats, but yeah, so she'll only come out at night. The lean and hungry type, seen it before, watching and waiting. Her eyes are on the door. Wild, tamed up. Yeah, you could see. I'm going to have another quick look and see. So, Maniac. I have heard this story told, and as the Italians would say, se non è vero, if it's not true, it's a good story.
That's not true.
Yeah, the original idea for the song came to McCoskey when he was watching a news report on a serial killer, which inspired some gruesome lyrics that he and the Sembello came up with.
Oh, so they didn't even write it themselves.
Well, no, I think...
well, it's Daryl Hall and John Oates.
John Oates. Oh, okay. No, because I've seen this guy, Michael Sembello, he's like... he used to play like keyboard and guitar and stuff like that, because it's got a bitching guitor. So
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, you should probably steer clear of doing the lyrics. Do you know what I mean? Like, lads, I've got another one about a serial killer.
I was going to say, you can't imagine that.
Like we're doing middle of the road rock here, mate. Yeah. Come on. Yeah, but this one's about him gutting people and killing cats.
It's like that. What was it? The Spinal Tap, and they're going, "Oh, we'll go back to our projects." Like that musical we're going to do about Jack the Ripper. Saucy Jack, he's a haughty one. Saucy Jack, he's a naughty one.
I've still not seen Spinal Tap.
Have you not? Oh, you so got to watch that. It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I might get around to it.
Yeah.
So, Neil, what the fuck are we talking about today?
Right. Okay, let's draw a line under the bullshit start. So, listen, Chris, if I say to you, Woolpit,
don't tell me what to do.
Well, don't listen then. It's going to make it tricky to do this podcast. Turn your headphones off, use the force, and see if you can respond to what I'm saying.
I mean, most of what I say isn't really related to anything, so...
I mean, I'll be honest with you, it wouldn't be that much different, wouldn't it? You'd just be saying whatever you want to over the top of whatever I'm trying to say anyway.
Pretty much, yeah.
You know.
That's a relationship. The crumbling relationship.
Right. Should we try again?
Hey, Neil, I'm going to listen.
Yeah, great.
Come on then.
So I say to you, Woolpit.
Woolpit.
Woolpit. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Woolpit.
Yeah, it's a town. Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
What do you think
for wool?
The piece here, Chris, what we're trying to do, going to instantly go behind the scenes as we explain the concept to ourselves as we're doing it. The idea was that I was going to give you a town name and say what you thought of when you had that town name, and then we could sort of introduce it into the concept that we're going for today.
Okay.
So we've ruined that very simple start.
Well, no, because I thought you were talking about a pit with wool in it.
No, it's... Right.
Woolpit.
I'll tell you what.
I think?
I'll take a different tack.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Today's urban legend, let's keep it nice and simple, is around the green children of Woolpit.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. That I thought of.
Yeah, see,
you should have persevered, Neil.
Should have persevered, and you would have gone. Well, clearly, Neil, green children. What else would one think of about Woolpit?
Exactly.
Now, my geography's not great.
It sounds like a northern town.
It's not. It's kind of like it's a bit.
I think it was the pit bit which got me.
You know, because obviously we're in Brighton, so everything's northern to us. But it's north of London. No, it's kind of like it's a bit like east of Cambridge. It's kind of like sort of East Anglia area. It's a little bit above Ipswich, kind of like you're moving towards sort of East Anglia area.
So like yeah,
it's between like Cambridge and Ipswich, I think.
Okay.
It's just like a village. Actually, I mean, it's probably not one that actually everyone would know because it's a village.
Near Colchester?
It's in Suffolk.
Okay. Well, that's enough. That's enough information.
Yeah, there you go. And it's a village, so you know we're looking at.
Fuck it.
I mean, I'll tell you this, Chris. It's
please do.
Suffolk Large Village of the Year 2019.
Sussex Large Village of the Year
2019. Yeah, that's not to be sniffed at.
Certainly isn't.
2,000 people.
That's a large village, isn't it?
That is I mean, that's nearly as big a village as you can imagine, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
certainly not Hamlet.
I mean, there's evens chances that you wouldn't have to marry someone from your own family in a village that size.
I mean, why wouldn't you? But yeah,
I know exactly.
The possibility exists. Should you
want to bang someone that looks like someone that you can see a bit of yourself in? Yeah, lovely. Woolpit. I'm looking it up.
So there's
Woolpit.
So I'm going to let you look this up. So it's a little village, as I say. It's kind of like it's a bit.
Right, yeah.
A bit north of Ipswich, sort of east of Cambridge, kind of like around that area.
Yeah, it's really near Elmswell and Tostock, I believe.
Is that because you're looking at Google Maps? That's what.
Absolutely. It's near Bury St Edmunds.
Yeah, there you go. There's another.
Yeah.
So
another place I didn't know where it was until I just looked.
It's kind of southeast, but going a bit more east.
Yeah, it's quite close to Thetford. Yeah, I know it. Yeah, sure, guy.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just say that to begin with?
Because I wanted to create an air of mystery for the podcast.
It's worked.
Just dole out the treats one at a time. You don't want to just get it all up front, otherwise nobody has
a little Bobby segment. Yeah, get it.
Yeah. You don't want to eat all your sweets at once. You just got to dole them out, and you'll feel sick if you haven't eaten them all at once.
Yeah.
Now I want you to look up the village sign for Woolpit, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh dear. There's a rotunda. There's someone doing judo. Someone on a unicycle. More people doing judo. There's quite a lot of judo in Woolpit.
I mean, this is the first time I've heard of it, but
famously, it's famous Aikido grounds, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I think that was where what's his face, Steven Seagal.
Steven Seagal trained, yeah.
Steven Seagal trained, yeah. That's why nobody could find the Japanese dojo master, because he actually lived in Suffolk.
I'm looking at the Woolpit village sign, and it's got a wolf or a dog standing on top of a church and two green children
it's got
holding
two kids,
hands.
so yeah, so you can. It's obviously still a prominent. So this urban myth actually dates back to the sort of
replaced with a Steven Seagal one, so
13th century. Yeah, well, we hope that Steven Seagal will be riding the wolf on top of the church at some point.
Once he's imprisoned correctly for sexual assault and then never released.
One can only hope. So, yeah, given that it goes back kind of like over 800 years, there's clearly not been a lot going on in this village. It's still
the Aikido school's quite new.
Yeah, we'll give that some salary. Because, effectively it's got...
To be fair, the boy is holding a stick which could be used for Aikido.
That's
so
true.
Maybe it does go back. Maybe the green children brought Aikido from the Nether
Well, he grew
regions.
up to become Little John in the Robin Hood tales. He went up to Nottingham, and then, and because he was green, he could hide in the trees like brilliant. For a big lad, you couldn't see him coming. He
just kind
Next thing you know, you get the court staff in the back of the head. You're one of the sheriff's men.
He just sort of fell out of the branches on top of you, crushing
like the Predator. Unbelievable times.
Wonderful.
Big energy. So, but, I mean, apparently Woolpit, there's different thoughts about the etymology, but one of the thoughts is it originally meant wolf pit. So I imagine around 2,500 years ago, the Anglo-Saxons came over and dug a pit to catch some wolves in. Because it was near a river, presumably. I'm making up this history, but I'm reasonably sure it's accurate.
Then
they build a church. Then some green kids turn up, and that's it. That's all that's happened for 800 years.
The
minuscule. I feel like you're nitpicking here, to be honest.
Yeah, the Anglo-Saxons came about 1,000 years after when you've dated them coming. But that's just traditional history. Who knows? You could be right.
What is time, Chris? What is chronology? Is it a flat circle? Is it cyclical?
I think it's pear-shaped.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah, time's like really quick.
Maybe the Anglo-Saxons are invading now. Do you ever think of that?
Wouldn't be a bad thing.
Give it another chance. No, they were
They were after the Romans.
Yeah, they were after the Romans, but so around 500. Oh, yeah, no, it'd be about 1,500 years ago, wouldn't it?
1,500,
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it would be post-Roman Britain.
In the traditional understanding of time.
Right, okay, well, fair enough.
Which neither of us adhere to.
Right, I just don't. Sorry, I refuse to be shackled by the concepts of history or time. Yeah, or physics. Or space. Much like modern
chemistry.
Hollywood movies. Or chemistry. or competence. So, all right, so let's say 500-600 years ago, 500-600 AD, some Anglo-Saxons turn up, dig a pit.
Yep.
Yeah, so they can catch some wolves in it.
Yep.
Then the Normans invade.
No.
Build a church.
500 years later.
Then some green kids turn up, about 1200 AD.
Where did they come from?
Nothing else. Nothing's
Greenland.
Well, we'll get in. We'll get into that, and again, I'm going to have to parcel it out fairly slowly because there's.
I'd like to apologise, Neil.
I should hope so.
Because
which of your many sins are you apologising for?
I know that you really enjoyed the soundboard last week, but that really was just a treat for the anniversary special. It won't be used again until maybe the second anniversary special. If we're still speaking.
That is a crying shame, Chris. Do you know what? It was so special. Why don't we save it for the 70th anniversary if we make it that far? Which we definitely won't. So, but just in case, because if we did, what a treat that would be.
Well, I'm planning on living to 119, so maybe.
Well, if they can genetically modify a tomato, why can't they genetically modify me? That's all I'm saying.
Exactly. Both got genes.
Keep me ripe with some reverse mRNA technology. Just get the Neil decaying himself genes. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's much more nurture, or rather lack of nurture in my case, than it is nature. I think the genetic lottery probably did all right by me, but anyway. Right. So.
You threw the ticket away.
Yeah. I just fucked it off. So published in the History of Yesterday, the Green Children of Woolpit. Green-skinned youths who spoke an unknown language. So, we're in the 12th century, Chris. It's a time of anarchy. Stephen II's on the throne.
Oh, no.
I mean, I believe that whole thing...
Stephen II?
Yeah, also...
I've never heard of that. It's Stephen.
I think that...
Hello, King Stephen, yeah?
I believe... It's quite horrible, actually, but I believe the... Stephen of England, yeah. So there was one Stephen in 1150...
I didn't know we'd had a King Stephen.
I don't think we've had one for quite a while.
Nah.
I'm sure there was a... But was it Stephen of Bois?
That must be annoying if you're a Stephen, but it used to be a posh name.
I mean, I don't think we've had a King Kevin for a while. Or King Wayne. He's not been around for
King Jeff III.
I'll tell you what, King Neil, forget about it, mate.
Yeah, there's no King Christopher.
No, quite
Should
right.
be. Well, there will be. King Christopher.
Anyway, I think there was a lot of kind of... It was a bit... I think it was like... The period was referred to as kind of like the first Civil War, and I think out of all of these... I can't remember...
There were a lot of people like taken thrown, getting kicked off, taken.
Yeah, just kind of disputing who's. I mean, that generally tends to go on, doesn't it?
Well, it was a couple of centuries after the Normans had taken over, so I guess things haven't settled down.
Yeah, and then you've got fights between, I would imagine, the kind of like
sons, illegitimate sons.
Because 1215,
aunties,
I mean, a bit after that would have been the
grandparents.
Magna Carta, wouldn't it? When the nobles, the barons or whatever, were
Yeah,
basically, English history is all around the king losing power every century, more or less, until it just becomes a meaningless, symbolic figurehead like it is today.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, which is what you want, really. Because, you're talking about the genetic lottery. Let's look at our royal family.
Very much winners on the lottery of being born into wealth. Very much losers on the genetic lottery, unfortunately.
Well, there was a
exploding hands.
Bit of inbreeding for a few hundred years.
Yeah.
They've gone uphill since I forget the chap's name, but I think it might have been the last guy who was part of the Habsburg Empire. No, there was one guy. It's quite sad actually, but he was so inbred. It was like, you see a picture of him.
He had no face and 3 buttocks.
Do you know what? It's kind of like not far off. Bless him. It was, he had some horrific kind of like genetic conditions, and there's paintings. Anyway, let's not get into that.
He had an inside-out face.
Yeah.
Like Darren Anderton.
He looks a little bit like, it's not quite right, but it's not really. It's kind of got a bit of an Elephant Man vibe going on, but not quite. It's not like Proteus syndrome exactly, but he had like a deformed face, like heavily deformed face. He couldn't sort of chew properly and stuff like this because I think his mouth was
like a bulldog.
Yeah, no, no, exactly, yeah, but it's really sad actually. But anyway, inbreeding kids don't do it.
Don't tell people what to do, Neil. Like we would heavily err on the side of caution when it comes to inbreeding. That's all we're saying. But at the end of the day, it's your right, presumably as an American, to do that if you want. Or someone from Woolpit.
Yeah. There's only 2,000 of you, so what are you going to do? You know, maybe go to Ipswich and, oh man, that'd be like... I'd go to Rome, wouldn't it?
Whoa! They've got Weatherspoons.
How depressing would it be to be impressed by Weatherspoons?
I've been so long since I've been to a pub, I'd probably find that quite impressive.
Do you know what? Weatherspoons down the marina's all right. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I'll give them points because some spoons are just really, really depressing. Some of them are fine, but I'm not a huge fan of the guy who owns it, but whatever. But to be fair, depending on who's running it, they can be fine. And
well, the one in the marina's nice because it's in a really nice location.
It's in a nice location, but also, last time I was down there, they were doing Mythos on. I don't know if it was on tap or if it was in a bottle, but that impressed me. Lovely Greek beer for those of you who haven't tried it. Anyway, so it's the anarchy. You know, there's all sorts kicking off. I can't be bothered to Google it, to be honest with you, but I think it was Stephen II. Anyway, they're fighting over the throne, you know, who owns it, etc. You know, that's... So,
shit.
During these times of trouble, a rather peculiar situation took place in England. Wrath of Coggeshall, a sixth abbot, whatever that means.
Wrath of Coggeshall?
Ralph of Coggeshall.
Oh, Ralph.
Yeah. He's like King Ralph, but he's a monk and not a king, yeah? And this was back in, you know, people
it's John Goodman, right?
People didn't have surnames back in those days, did they?
No.
You know, you
just called us like whatever your trade was.
Well, it could be your trade, or it could be where you came from.
Yeah.
So you'd just be Ralph, but then it'd be like, well, which Ralph are we talking about? Because, you know, it's a famous Ralph, this one. Well, you know, Ralph of Coggeshall. Oh, was he the one who wrote the book about the Green Kids? Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Ralph Coggeshall. You know,
big American guy plays the piano.
Yeah. Right, he's now John Goodman. He's being played by, as I've decided. So he described green children arriving in the village of Woolpit. And decades later, the monk and historian William of Newburgh, I think it's even said so, would also recount the same story. What I like here, Chris, is normally we'll do like a story from, you know, it could be, you know, South America, or it might be from the Philippines or something like that, or Japan, and we'll sort of like, you know, rightly say, well, we might not know how to pronounce the names here, you know, struggle a little bit with that. I'm struggling here, and this is all just, you know, the place
English names.
The place that I live in.
John Smythe?
I'll tell you what, like
John Smythe.
No, but do you know the surname St. John?
No, not really. Well, I've heard of it.
Right, but you know that's spelt St. John.
Is it?
It's STJOHN. That's pronounced St. John.
It's nice.
I didn't know that until I was in my mid-20s, and you didn't know that until now. So
no, I've not met a lot of people with the surname St. John.
I'll be honest with you, it's not knowledge I've needed to use very often. I don't meet a lot of St.
Most people that I mix with, they aren't necessarily named after saints.
Although weirdly, it's not called St. John's Ambulance. Maybe it should be. I might start doing that.
St. John's Ambulance.
I don't know whether that would mark me out as very posh or very ignorant. Probably the latter.
I think it just marks you out as a cunt.
Yeah, I think that one advertises itself fairly strongly anyway.
I know, but why not?
Yeah,
why not?
Just really reinforce the impression.
Why not hammer the point home?
Yeah. So historians would use...
There's a town near Woolpit village called Hortley New Street. That's quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hortley New Street.
To any non-UK listeners, we do effectively live in fucking Hobbiton.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's based on, isn't it?
It's a mad country. And even we don't really
Drinkstone Green, that's nice.
Do you know what? It looks really pretty, though. It's that kind of...
village, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lovely little old village.
Problem with villages or cottages is I can't live in them because of my height. They're too low.
Oh, do you know what? When I went to Prague, and you can go and see where Kafka lived. And so there's this thing, and it's what they reckon you based the book The Castle on.
Yeah.
And you can go in and you can go into the room that Kafka would have lived in and worked in. And fucking, I was like stupid. I thought, no wonder he wrote all those antsy books. He must have been well depressed living in this place.
Yeah.
Tiny room, and you're really like, I was having to stoop down to get in it. Yeah.
I remember going and looking at a flat in off of St George's Street. Not St James's Street, sorry, in Kent Town. And it was above the shops. It was kind of on the road between that, and so it's just off. And kind of you go up above the shop and go into the flat, and the ceiling was probably maybe a foot higher than my head. Like how? And then I was like, "There's no way I could live in here." I mean, technically, I can live in it.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? But I mean, talk about the walls closing in, like just, and that's not even that old a building. I mean, it's 150 years old or something, but. Blimey.
Was the estate agent like, how does it feel?
It's cosy, isn't it?
Bijou.
It's cosy, isn't it? Yeah. You don't have to, it's very easy to clean the roof, clean the ceiling.
That's a real value add, that, If you want to paint the ceiling, you're not going to have any problems there. No ladders are required. That's going to save you some storage.
Yeah, although the landlord has said that you're not allowed to paint the ceiling or the walls, or move in any of your own furniture.
But if you were,
or live here, you're not allowed to use any of the doors. Good times.
Right. Anyway, so stories would use these two reports to create the full narrative of the Green Children in Woolpit. Whether the story is true or false, nobody knows. But it's intrigued listeners ever since the 12th century. So.
Yes.
It's the 12th century, and the village of Woolpit was an agriculturally productive and densely populated part of rural England. One day, the villagers saw two children, a boy and a girl, emerging from the wolf-trapping pits. They had green skin, spoke an unknown language, and were dressed in strange clothing.
Aliens, isn't it?
Well, you do got to wonder, haven't you? And both children, who were later discovered to be siblings, were taken to the home of Sir Richard de Calne, about 6 miles away from Woolpit.
Were they discovered to be siblings, if they can understand their language?
Well, we'll come to that.
Passports.
We'll come to that. Yeah, fortunately, they had biometric passports, so they were able to sort of,
they just did a simple DNA test.
Yeah, not a problem. And obviously they couldn't do that until they got to Sir Richard de Calne's castle.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have had the PCR machines in the local village cottages.
No, that's where they kept the mass spectrometer and such.
They could do basic gel electrophoresis in the cottages, obviously, but
do a basic swab test. But
that's as a medieval villager would have told you. Well, the accuracy is going to be somewhat spurious. So, to be honest with you,
wait
until you get to the castle. We'll do this properly.
He'll give you some idea, but really, if you want, it's not going to be much use for any legal documentation. So,
because we may as well just,
might as well keep your powder dry. We'll go up to the castle,
get this sorted out properly.
Where the proper.
There's one thing we do in Woolpit.
Where the boys at the lab. So
we trap wolves in a pit, and we do this. We do things properly.
We do this is the. To be honest with you, the castle actually has the most advanced crime lab in kind of a 10-mile radius. Yeah. So, obviously, if you want anything particularly good done, then you need to go to Stowmarket. But for what we need here,
I feel like the rest of the UK didn't take proper advantage of the kind of forensic testing that they did have in Woolpit. Hundreds of years behind in some ways.
Well, people thought it was witchcraft, didn't they?
Well, that's true, yeah.
Ended up burning the castle down.
Someone tried to explain what a fingerprint was, and just the Witchfinder General just had them burn at the stake. Having absolutely none of that. Right. So in their first several days there, the children refused to eat anything but beans. Over time, they got used to different foods, and their green skin faded to a normal colouring. Sadly, the boy would become ill and die, but his sister survived.
So is this one of those situations? So, if you eat loads and loads of carrots, your skin can take on an orangey hue.
Yeah, so beta carotene, you can get you can eat so much of it, it won't actually.
That's what Donald Trump only ate carrots, didn't he?
He did a lot of things with carrot. He ingested carrots in fashions that I don't want to dwell on, but yeah, beta carotene was entering into his bloodstream.
One way or another.
Ways that we won't get into.
By hook or by crook.
By the pound. Just fire them up there.
I wonder if this is something like that, where they were maybe orphans and they were just living off greens.
Yeah, it could be, some deficiency syndrome or something like that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Hey, Neil, I'm just throwing it out there.
No, it's a fair point.
Speculate to accumulate.
Especially since once the diet was changed, they then became ungreen. So certainly interesting.
Could they have been could they have been like precursors to the Incredible Hulk?
Well, that could have been it. So when they saw them, they were hungry and upset, and then angry, and therefore they were hulking out.
Yeah.
But then when they fed them, they got a little bit more emotionally stable and just started changing back.
I think that's an equally.
That's the most compelling theory. I mean, I don't have the kind of level of Woolpack, forensic testing to be able to.
Well, no one does. It's lost technology, a lot of it, isn't it now? Unfortunately.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of that ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
So she eventually learned English, and this is how they know that they were siblings. Right. Explain where she came from. So according to her, they came from a land called St. Martin's Land, where the sun never shone. She and her brother were looking after their father's flock when they suddenly heard a strange noise which caused them to enter a cave. Right. If you're in St. Martin's Land, you hear a strange noise, get into a cave, yeah?
Exactly.
Better safe than sorry.
Duck and roll.
Yeah. And when they crossed the other side of the cave, they arrived in Woolpit, where they encountered the Reapers that discovered them. After this revelation, Richard Decane named the girl Agnes. She worked for him for years before marrying the Archdeacon of Ely, Richard Barr, and according to one report, the couple produced one child. So there's a few different things in here. There's various different ways that this is interpreted. So some people say they wouldn't eat anything, and it was only when they sort of saw some beans or whatever, or somebody tried to feed them some beans, that they suddenly started ravenously eating these beans. And that was all they would eat for a period, apparently, until Richard Decane managed to sort of get them into vary their diet a little bit.
Eating some chops.
Yeah, some lovely chops or something.
Have some chops.
And then they sort of like the green colouring kind of disappeared. So yeah, that does sound like some kind of vitamin deficiency or something like that. I'm not heard of one that would turn the skin green. As you say, too much beta carotene can turn you a bit of an orange hue. I do know that. But the body would just sort of still it doesn't actually harm you. It just sort of like makes you look a bit odd, I would imagine. Although some people like to be a lurid chicken tikka hue, as per Mr. Trump, as you say. So.
Well, good luck.
That's also, yes, but do you know what? If it makes you feel comfortable, I suppose fair play. Yeah, I've never quite understood it, but there you go.
No, well, it's a sign of insecurity.
Yeah, I mean, as with so much. Well, hey, there you go. Yeah, so let's see then. Have we got any other kind of accounts on here?
Maybe they were covered. Maybe they've been working in a copper mine, because copper can turn the skin green, can't it?
Yeah, you hit like verdigris or something like that.
A lot of talk about caves.
Do you think they were actually some animated bronze statues and they had third degree, but then when they ate properly, they turned back to their normal, lovely bronze colour?
To normal children, yeah.
Yeah.
Could be, couldn't it?
Possible, wouldn't it? It'd be like that scene out of, what's that?
Tokyo?
20s. No, it's that 20s movie where the robot turned into the lady. Metropolis.
Yeah. It's some of that's quite good.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of...
Did you know that
groundbreaking for the time, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, considering the special effects are very good at the time. Did you know that the Statue of Liberty, when it was initially put up,
it was pure bronze. Yeah, it just become that kind of
amazing, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah.
It would look much better like that.
it was just like a shiny bronze colour.
Shiny bronze.
I don't know. I like the green look. I think this is why it's quite brass. It's quite nice that it ages like that. But yeah, it would have been pretty spectacular to have seen at the time as well.
I didn't realise that.
Because there's one under a bridge in Paris as well, isn't there? I think
Lady Liberté.
Yeah. There's like a smaller version. I don't know.
Well, it was a gift, wasn't it? It was a gift.
Well, yeah, it was a gift from the French to the Americans when they became independent. But
kiss ups.
Well, Napoleon for you.
Yeah.
That would have been before him, but yeah.
Could have been sepsis. That can make you go a bit green.
Yep, gangrene of the head. You're not. I'm sorry. We're going to have to do a headectomy.
I've had that.
Yeah.
Went great.
Well, your brain went rotten, didn't it?
It did. Yeah. So it had to be replaced with that other chimp.
How's that working out for you?
I've got a bad job now, so went all right, to be honest.
I'll be honest with you, it seems like an improvement all round.
Yeah, things have picked up.
IQ and behaviour have both gone up by about 20 points, I would suggest.
Behaviour especially.
Yeah.
I fit into society much easier. So, okay.
I mean...
Continue.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how much more I can spin out of this. So let's.
She married quite well then, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's different ones because I mean, there seems to be. So the consistent thing is they were green kids when they found. So they were found by some like farmers or whatever. Green kids found.
Rapiers or whatever.
Yeah.
Called.
Reapers. They weren't swords, I don't believe. So they would have been people, I guess, just like farming in the fields.
They weren't rapiers. It wasn't.
No, they weren't. They weren't a form of sword. No.
Right. Okay. Well, that does complicate things. That does complicate my theory.
Okay.
They weren't
animatronic swords. Right. No. I'm not sure what Fantasia theory you're cooking up in your head, but
it was basically Fantasia.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, put that one in your back pocket. See.
Yep, I'll use it next week. Don't worry.
Every fucking week. Yeah, I mean, depending on who. I mean, obviously, I've not read the.
We're taken to the Lords.
The Source Chronicles. I mean, it's all
do the science.
Yeah, it's all they go along. They do the DNA testing, and it's like, look, it's just a vitamin deficiency. No worries. Just give some different food. It'll be fine.
The boy,
the boy, in all of them, the boy does seem to die. I mean, because
suspiciously, the boy dies.
Well, yeah, because some of them they reckon that actually both of them spoke English. Like both of them were able to learn English, and then the boy kind of died quite young, but not. In some tellings he dies quite soon after they find them. In some he seems to live for quite a while, but that he still dies as a child, whereas that she grows up. I mean, according to Ralph, the girl was employed as a servant in Richard Kent's household, where she was considered to be very wanton and impudent. But yeah, and eventually married a man from King's Lynn, about 40 miles from Woolpit.
Big city.
Nice. She went up in the world. And then based on a research into
Tell
Richard
you what, kid, I've fucked this shit town. I'm going to King's Lynn.
And apparently it was an astronomer and writer, Duncan Lewin, who's a Scottish astronomer, and he obviously does some history. But he was researching into Richard de Cow's family history, and he believed that she was given the name Agnes, and married to Richard Barr, who was the scholar and clergyman that we So so she seems to have acclimatised and to sort of like fit into society, whereas he seems to have died a bit younger.
So when was that? This is the 12th century.
It's 12th century, so it would have been.
Did clergymen marry then? Because it would have been Catholic, presumably. Because there hadn't been the Protestant Martin Luther and shit. So.
Well, it's saying here that Richard Boyle was a medieval English justice, clergyman, and scholar. Educated at the Law School of Bologna, into royal service under King Henry II of England.
Bologna University as well. Impressive.
Yeah.
Well, could the clergy marry back then? Because when was it that Catholic priests were banned from marrying? Was that there must have been after this?
No, always.
Well, how was he married?
Well, hang on a second. I'm just having a look. I mean, when I say clergyman,
doesn't add up. Well, yeah, but what does clergyman mean if it isn't priest? Unhand me, priest.
Oh, hang on a minute. So, this was after his dust up with Thomas Becket. Do you know what? Doesn't matter, does it? Let's not take up more airtime where I try and look up what exactly. Clergyman, I must confess, or one of the clergy you would think it would be. I mean, he obviously hadn't taken holy orders, because if you're a Catholic priest, you cannot get married at this period of time. Absolutely. Well, if you're a Catholic priest, you can't get married, full stop.
Yeah, so how's he getting married?
Goes to zero and all that. So, well, no, it just says as a clergyman. Well, I don't know what officially that.
What does that mean?
Well, you keep saying it, but I can't.
Well, don't worry about it.
So good. Yeah, I mean that's sort of. I don't. He must have been some.
Do you reckon it's like a
he must be some
preacher?
kind of layman involved in the church somehow, because he's getting involved with Thomas Becket.
Right, so just like some lay, but he's just going, I'll do it. Don't give a sermon.
Yeah, I really don't know, mate, to be honest with you.
Confusing, isn't it?
It is confusing. I'm not sure,
thickens.
because he certainly, if he was... I'm just trying to look up, see exactly what his role is.
Oh, I've just found something here. It says that a Catholic priest can't marry unless his bride is green. So maybe that's it.
Oh, of course. Or has been green in the past.
That's one of the fun ones brought in by the Borgias.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that Pope was really having a laugh. Well, but to be fair, Mary Magdalene was green.
She was green.
Yeah.
Yeah, it specifically says so.
Probably tertiary syphilis, but,
gangrene.
Nonetheless, if Jesus forgave, it's not for it's not for you to judge. Well, that's taking me down a bit of a rabbit hole. Well, this is coming from the man who was talking about Hall and Oats earlier. So, I mean, yeah, but what we do have is we have documented evidence that there were some green children who just suddenly turned up in a small village one day.
Yeah.
So, and we're still talking about it to this day. I don't know why, because it's not much of a tale, to be honest with you.
No idea why we're still talking about it.
Don't know why we're still talking about it now, like as in after
this podcast,
in this podcast, let alone 800 years after. Clearly, I mean, the fact that it's on their village sign, again, I'm going to emphasise, clearly not a lot has gone on in Woolpit for the last 1,000 years. They've built a church, they've trapped some wolves, and they've had some green kids come in.
Then obviously the wolves were eradicated from the UK. So
I mean, if that's the highlight of your millennium,
they had to get rid of the wolf pits.
Imagine if you
what have they got left?
Imagine if you'd come to Brighton, your head would explode, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You'd come down and see the Brighton Festival or something, or I don't know, go up to Edinburgh or something like that.
Yeah, or you go to Ipswich or King's Lynn.
Dublin.
Well, Beirut.
Yeah.
Okay, now, well, that's...
Addis Ababa.
Yeah.
Well, no, hang on. So
Okay,
let's explore... Well, no. So that's the tale, okay?
Right.
But then let's get into sort of like some of the, what could it have been? Some of the theories. Yeah.
Mini hulks.
Why has it become such a rich piece of folklore in England, Chris? And to be fair...
We all learn it in school.
Do you know what? If you look through, like, the Greek myths, like, a lot of those are shit.
Yeah.
It's just... yeah. Classic literature and the classical antiquity period, yeah, Neil's not a fan. No, because the thing is, you've got like the big ones, haven't you? You've got the big boys, like Jason the Argonaut, Odysseus and all that. But then you've got kind of like, how the juniper tree was created, and it's just like, some sperm lather running away and then fell over and, their blood came to a puddle in a juniper tree, spawned on a spot or something like that. Because at the end of the day, a lot of it would have just been trying to sort of like...
Well, there's a lot of stuff to explain, isn't there? You can't
you
can't put full effort into every single thing. There's
when
everything
you don't have
in
scientific
the universe.
methods, then you just
there's
have to
everything
make
in the
a lot of stuff
universe
up.
to explain. So some of it you're just going to phone in.
Well, exactly, as we demonstrate every week on this podcast.
Someone saw a swan and cried, and the tears dropped on the ground, and that's why we get water lilies. Whatever. That'll do. Next. Next question.
So some people...
Why is it that this has become the nation's #1 story now?
Yeah. Well, it got overtaken by Harry Potter in the late 90s, didn't it? But, I'm still fuming about that.
Well, it's pushing back.
Yeah.
We're the vanguard, but it'll retake.
Don't worry about it.
So this story, every school child learns this, Neil. Why is it captured
20th century
heart?
scholars of folklore, such as Charles Oman, noted that one element of the children's account, the entry into a different reality by way of a cave, seems to have been quite popular. Gerald of Wales...
Narnia.
Gerald of Wales, the medieval historian, tells a similar story of a boy who, after escaping his master, encountered 2 pygmies who led him through an underground passage into a beautiful land with fields and rivers, but not lit by the full light of the sun.
Pygmies?
Yeah, apparently.
He was aware of African pygmies, was he?
I imagine it just means sort of some little people.
Right.
I don't know. This is Gerald of Wales. You know what he's like. He's a bit insensitive.
It's all over this shit right now.
Yeah, it's different time though, Chris. You can't hold on to our current standards.
I'm glad he got banned from Twitter.
Yeah, well, it's about time.
Welsh tattoo covering his back.
No, he's a proud fan of the dragon and leaks as well, and shouldn't have to apologise for that. So there's a category of English and North American folktale motifs that apparently they're inhabitants of lower world visiting mortals and continuing to live with them. So it's kind of like, fairies coming from a different land in the underground and coming out and sort of, coming and living amongst us. So, and apparently there could be someone else has suggested there could be a Celtic connection. So green spirits are sinless in Celtic literature and tradition. It may be more than a coincidence that the green girl marries a man of King's Lynn. Here the original word would be lane, evil, i.e. the pure fairy marries a sinful child of earth.
Well, there's a whole thing about the green man, which is kind of representation of nature, and he's carved into a lot of medieval churches.
Yeah, or you've got the green
goblin.
Yeah, the Green Goblin from Spider-Man, obviously. There's the
without sin.
Is it the Green Knight? Then it's one of the Arthurian tales.
I've not heard of it. Green Lantern.
It's like some big tree, basically. He comes in.
Green Giant.
Yeah, Green Lantern.
provides corn.
Yeah.
To the starving.
And he's jolly about it as well, isn't he? He loves it. Yeah. I'll tell you what. There's a lad who's got a job that he's satisfied with. Jolly Green Giant. You can tell he's really happy about that corn manufacture, or that tilling of corn that he's got himself into.
Look, I worked my way up from nothing, and now I've got myself in the corn manufacturing business, and I can provide corn at low prices to the hungry, like I was as a boy. Yeah. Ho ho ho.
He's feeding people. He's got a thriving industry, and he's employing people in the cannery. He's loving it.
Yeah, green children in the cannery.
And the thing is, and giant lads, they've got big appetites, so he needs feeding.
That's why they eat so many villagers.
Yeah,
that's why they. That's why they crush our bones and make.
That is the one downside of working in the Jolly Green Giant's factory, I must confess. Is a tenth of the work floors does get eaten by the boss every.
You got to get out at lunchtime. You got to get out of there sharpish.
But that's the thing is, if you're going to be one of the stragglers, as he said himself, if you're first out the door, you're never going to be first into his stomach. So make the effort.
First out the door, last in my intestines.
Yeah.
Well, it's good. It's good for productivity, isn't it? Because you make sure you get your work done, so you can get out of there when the hooter blows before he comes down looking for his human snacks.
Yeah.
If you're not hitting your product, if you're still there going, I've still got 10 more to do, then
that's how I keep the margins up.
Natural selection at play, isn't it? Darwinism. Fair enough.
you know.
That's the free market at work now.
And, and therefore it must be correct. Morally,
of course.
morally and...
it's a self-correcting system.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Anyway, back to medieval folklore. So it can also be associated with symbols of death. So
either no sin or death.
Yeah,
right.
Celts, apparently green is about purity. But you've also got it's the Green Knight myth, which is part of they've got it here about it's one of the tales of Arthur. Right. I think it was Segwayne or something. He challenges him to a fight or something like that. So he comes back. It's like I don't know. They made a film out of it with Dev Patel about a couple of years back. It's quite good actually. Yeah,
my authorial knowledge is weak.
Tell you what, watch the movie. And then you'll be sorted. Yeah, it's quite good.
I don't really like watching films now. You're not going to make me.
All right, fine. Right. Some people sort of link it to things like the Babes in the Wood. So, children getting to die in the woods and they end up sort of like, and they thought they could be them being poisoned with arsenic, which turned them into, green kids.
Yep. Early zombie legends.
Could be early zombies. Other commentators have suggested the children may have been aliens or inhabitants of a world beneath the earth. See,
lizard people.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because, I quite like the concept that, there's a lot of people like in one of those bad sci-fi movies, or like the Jules Verne thing, where there's just a lot of people living in the corner.
Morlocks or whatever.
Yeah. I think that was H.G. Wells, wasn't it?
Yeah, the time traveller.
Because, they probably came down and they didn't manage to turn green to... They kind of went, like human-shaped, but then...
Yeah, but they don't get the sunlight, so they turn green. That's how it works.
Or they were turning it into chlorophyll.
Yeah,
so they go human shape, but then they assume, they must be processing energy.
What if they
these plants? Oh no, we've got to respire instead. Let's.
Well, you've got in Costa Rica there are sloths, and they look green because they have basically like moss growing on them because they're so slow moving. Maybe they were just like covered in moss or something.
Yep.
Maybe they were. The children of He-Man character Mossman. Then maybe they come from Eternia.
I'm not familiar with that one. It's I know Manny Faces and Fisto.
Well, you look a bit like Fisto, don't you?
I don't know where you're going with that, but
you've got the beard.
I've got the beard and the huge fist. You know where that's going, right.
and a tight tank top, and furry pants. So there's lots of
different possibilities there. Although there's been Paul Harris in 1998 argued for a down-to-earth explanation of the green children in the context of 12th century history.
Come on.
So he thinks they were the children of Flemish immigrants who arrived in eastern England during the early 12th century and were persecuted after Henry II became king in 1154. So St Martin's Land could have been the village of Fordham St Martin, just north of Bury St Edmunds, and their parents could have been Flemish cloth workers who set up there, because there was a lot of trade coming back and forth, especially the cloth industry with it, and 1173, that was the site of the Battle of Fordham, apparently, which was, where they were having a lot of battles going on. So who knows? The children's colour could be explained by green sickness, which is the result of a dietary deficiency.
Yeah.
Yep. So that certainly seems like that could explain the green skin bit. So.
Well, and if their parents were cloth merchants, they could have just been like a green dye on them. Do you know what I mean? And it took a while for it to come off because they lived in conditions where they're constantly dyeing clothes. And dye is quite difficult to get off your skin, isn't it?
Yeah, well, someone was saying they were probably suffering from chlorosis, a deficiency disease which gives the skin a greenish tint, hence the term green sickness. With a better diet, it disappears. Because chlorosis apparently is just an iron deficiency anemia, but presumably it must have given people a green tint back in the day for them to call it chlorosis. But, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's other folklorists who are like, why are you trying to explain it? Doesn't matter, does it? It's a good little bit of folklore.
Our favourites. Yeah.
Stop overdoing it.
Yeah, what's the matter with sharp logic, boy?
Yeah. Because you never really know, can you?
No.
So there you go. You know, that's a nice little tale, isn't it, Chris?
It is a nice little tale.
I mean, you know, and do you know what I like about it? All ends happily. Well, not for the lad.
Apart from the boy who was killed.
Ah, fuck it. You know, can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. But, you know, she did all right for herself, didn't she?
And we don't know the circumstances of the marriage, but, you know, hopefully.
Well, fingers crossed.
Well, there you go, Neil.
And there's been books written about it. There's been plays.
We all learn about it in school.
An American indie band called the Green Children Duo, who's performing in Nashville in 2009. That's actually they're an Anglo-Norwegian band. There you go.
One of those.
Yeah.
Classic.
It's been the basis for lots of 20th and 21st century children's books. Yeah.
So, Neil. Sorry.
We're going to score it.
Do you want to go through the scoring system for
Let us, yes.
This well-known part of our English heritage.
Our shared national fabric of history. And
which I didn't know the backstory to. I just took it as read. You know, I didn't know the backstory. I mean,
its backstory is pretty much in just the title, isn't it? It's just some green kids.
Well, yeah. But, I didn't really need to dig any further. One died, one
get married.
Yeah, that was all right.
I lived in Woolpit. Nothing else has happened since.
Yeah.
See you later.
Oh, worst thing that happened here was when they shut the wolf pits.
Oh.
When we killed all the wolves.
A statue, wasn't
it? So, Neil.
Got proud wolf miners.
There was some,
have you seen the price of wolf skin these days?
Yeah, well, we have to have it all imported from Russia, don't we?
It's ridiculous.
Just yeah. So, Neil, do you want to go first with?
Yes, was it spookiness?
Spookiness.
It's not very spooky.
No.
You know, getting like disappearing in a land of the fairies or something like that would be a bit weird. Like if you went through a cave and disappeared somewhere else. If you're a kid, I suppose it could be a bit spooky. If you just suddenly, you know, you're down in, I don't know, some Flemish place or whatever, and then suddenly you, or somewhere in Belgium, and then you suddenly wake up in some tiny village in the east of England. That'd be great, would it?
I think they said that there were Flemish people who were working in a town nearby.
Well, that was what one of their stories theorised. You know, their original tale was
they
suddenly went through a cave and just appeared. But it depends on how much you can believe. What a monk wrote in a book 800 years ago.
Well, I believe it wholesale. I don't ask any questions. Neil is a man of God.
Good.
There's a lot of places around that area with like Walsh and Lee willows, like Le Willows.
Yeah.
So there's kind of Frankish or French kind of influence in that area.
Yeah, it could be, and it could. You know, they were kids, so they just, you know, well, who knows? Again, it's not really worth trying to. It's too far back in the mists of time to try and be too accurate about what it would have been. Anyway, spookiness, no, not very spooky. 2 out of 10.
2, okay. I think the only thing, because the kids aren't very spooky, even though they're green, because they're kids. But I mean, I guess it's quite spooky that, either the kids got lost and then the bloke in the castle just kept them rather than trying to find their parents and then married one of them off. That's quite spooky. Or if they were made orphans because of something horrible, then that's a bit spooky as well. So I think from the kids' point of view, or from the way that children were sort of handed around, then there's a level of spookiness.
In fairness on that one, if they'd have been known, if you're not known in the village, then you come out of nowhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you'd be known. It'd be small.
It doesn't sound like they did.
You're looking at about 200 people knocking about in those days. Everyone would know each other. So if they just appear, what else is he going to do? Do you know what I mean?
Well, send a rider out or put some notices up in nearby villages and towns. Well, there's nothing to suggest he did. So with the lack of evidence, I'm going to have to assume it didn't happen. So for me, I'm going to give it, from the kids' point of view, it's quite scary. So I'm going to give it a 4.
Fair dues.
So believability. Well, we've come up with many almost indisputable arguments for why these kids could have been green. It could have been medical, could have been lack of vitamins, could have been mini Hulks or Mossmen, could have been aliens.
Yeah.
All of them perfectly, but could have been copper miners.
So rich people might have been green in those days. We just don't know.
We just don't know. There's no way of finding out. I think there's nothing to suggest that this didn't happen, really. So I think it's really believable. So, I mean, I'm going with the believability of 9 on this now.
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to end up with the same score on the same premise. It's entirely possible that some kids with a vitamin deficiency turned up in a village one day and been out wandering or whatever, for whatever reason. It was a time when there was a fair bit of wars and things going on. I'm not convinced. Maybe he could have found it anyway. Whatever that is. I don't. The basic facts are. It may all be complete nonsense, but it was written out by a contemporary source. Several
sources
as well. Well, the second one was written about 50 years afterwards, so it's not contemporaneous. So he probably based it on the original source.
Yeah, well, it's 2 sources then, isn't it? In today's journalistic way.
Primary source, Chris, all right, from a historical perspective.
I was just making a joke about journalists not getting sources properly these days, Neil. You didn't have to get your pants in a fucking bunch. Right, reach, Mr. Shouty Pants, come on. No, this is obviously going to be quite a UK-centric one, but it has been around for a very long time, and I'm not entirely sure why, because there isn't a lot to it. But there you go. As I already said, there are some Greek myths that have, been captured for posterity that aren't necessarily that fascinating in and of themselves, although, larger body and all the rest of it have worked. But in a way, that's quite nice. Folklore throws up these little bits of surprises. So, it's been around for 800 years, so it's probably going to carry on being around. I don't think it's one that's going to get very well known or going to excite people, in these days with all their Pokemons and that. They're not interested in honest UK myths like Green Kids, are they? No, they want with all their
not tearing each other's heads off like Mortal Kombat. Don't care about that.
With all their deep fakes.
Yeah. You can make anyone scream green on Photoshop these days, can't you?
With all their deep fakes and bubble
just with some, fantasy, some pill you can probably take to turn green, or just some vapor or vaping.
Yeah, just for too busy vaping.
Yeah. So I don't think it'll have a good reach, but it's been around for a long time, so I'm going to split difficult at 5.
Okay, well, it's been in a lot of stories, Matt, you've said. So it's been in literature. Despite the fact that we all learn it in school, it's the first thing we learn. I've never heard of it.
Yeah. We didn't go to school, did you, Chris?
I didn't know. I was down at
talking of Woolpit, you were educated by wolves.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing all right, apart from me having to get my brain removed and replaced by that of a chimp. But it's 900. You'll get them for 900 years old.
Yeah.
So the reach through time's good. So I'm going to give it a 6 now.
Cool.
So narrative premise. There is a full narrative there. There's a beginning, a middle, and the end to the story, and then, kids turn up, get taken in, fed up, they kill the boy, marry off the daughter, she moves to King's Lynn, like bing, bang, bong. And they were green, which was novel. And you got to remember as well, this is 1,200 years ago, or it was in 1200 AD sort of time, so 900 years ago. It's all right. I'm going to give it a 5.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it is a complete story, but I don't think there's much in way of narrative hooks, because if they weren't green, I don't think you'd really care. Although I think what is nice is it plays on some other aspects of folklore, so you've got the kind of like the fairy stuff and things like that. So it's a bit like, an episode of Lost where it's like, oh, why are the kids green? And then you can explore different options for that one. So there's a bit in there, so I'll give it, I'll split the difference again on this one and give it a 5. I don't think you tell amazing stories, but, it's a jumping off point for other.
And the village has kept it, so it means a lot to 2,000 people.
Hey, the fine people of Woolpit, they've got it on their very village sign to this day. So.
They've been having a hard time since the Woolpit's closed, and they've hung on to this, and it's been the glue that's held their society
let's not knock
together.
it down any further.
So that's 45-0, so not too bad. Kind of there in the bell curve, which is nice, isn't it?
They can't all be big ones. Sometimes you want to play around with these little fellas.
Absolutely. Cool. So if you've ever turned green for a medical reason, please let us know at .legends.podcast@gmail.com. Or if you've got any kind of small urban legends which are maybe not very well known but are interesting and kind of within your area, then give us a shout. But apart from that, I think I'm going to let you get on with your day, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.